What's up, you guys? Ross Sapp here for the Wrestling Inc. podcast, June 1st edition. I am joined by absolutely no one because my current co-host, Rob McCarran, is battling, I think, Ebola right now. He might be able to join us later in the show, but right now you guys are stuck with me. Going to talk some NXT, UFC 199, this interesting Matt Hardy stuff from today, and really the last 6 months of Matt Hardy has been interesting, to say the least. We're going to talk a little bit about Jimmy Snuka. I'm not completely familiar with that yet, but going to kind of go on the fly here. Also going to be taking a ton of your questions. To lead things off, let's talk about this Matt Hardy stuff. So I posted a picture today. Matt Hardy yesterday, I think it was. Matt Hardy's been a little off, to say the least. If you've seen TNA Impact of late, you know that Matt Hardy, as he says, is broken. And let me see exactly what he said to me. I said, "Hey, Matt, do you have some time for a short interview to talk Slammiversary and some other things soon?" Now, I have reached out to Shane Helms, who agreed, EC3, who agreed, Elijah Burke, Pope, D'Angelo De Niro, talked to him for an hour tonight. Great guy. You know, I just wanted to do a few articles here and there next week to promote TNA's Slammiversary pay-per-view. I figure, you know, that might be something that they would be interested in pushing, especially Matt Hardy, who is going to be in a big match on the show against Jeff Hardy in a Monsters Ball match. So the response that I received was, and I can't do it in his new accent. If I could, then I would. The response that I got was, "No, you were not there to support Matt Hardy when he was on top of the world. You disavowed me and broke my spirit. You don't deserve to speak with me or be exposed to my essence. You do not even deserve this response. Be gone." Keep in mind, I interviewed him last summer before his TNA title reign. I interviewed him on video during his TNA title reign. I think I was quite supportive. I think Wrestling Inc. was very supportive. Needless to say, the Matt Hardy stuff, for better or for worse, whether you loved it or hated it, that is the most I've seen people talk about TNA of late, and it not involve their financials, anything like that. Whether you felt one way or another about the Matt Hardy segments, which I thought were frigging hilarious. Matt playing the piano sort of crudely, and his brother and Jeff shows up, and Matt's just there, and he goes, "Brother Nero." I thought it was great. I'm really enjoying it. It's a shame that Matt won't speak to us, but we got articles on EC3, Shane Helms, and Elijah Burke coming next week. So it's okay, Matt. It's okay. I'd love to get Rob's feelings on this, on the Matt Hardy situation. But unfortunately, as I mentioned, he's battling West Nile virus somewhere. So in addition to this, we had NXT tonight. I thought it was another good show. There was so long that NXT was a paint by numbers show. Every week it's the same thing. Squash match, squash match, squash match. A little vignette, a little interview backstage. And that format, especially the backstage stuff, I think for a while worked for them. Now, the squash matches nonstop, don't know about that. Didn't like that. Last 2 weeks have not been that way. There was a lot of good stuff on this show. You had the Revival kicking off the show, Ciampa and Gargano interrupting them. Gargano and Ciampa get the upper hand. That was cool. Nakamura, anytime I see him on the screen, is a joy, is a treat. I'm happy to see it. He speaks better English than I realized. He can cut his little limited promos in what he's scripted to do. I think that was very good. He said that Austin Aries will bow down to the King of Strong Style. There was a match that opened the show. Well, the first match of the show. I was also very interested to see. That was Buddy Murphy versus Ty Dillinger. Now, Buddy Murphy and who's his partner? Wesley Blake. They split. Wesley Blake had knee surgery. He's going to be out a while. Alexa Bliss, if really, well, outside of, so I mean, she's one of the girls I think could be on the main roster now. I think you're at where you need to be with Alexa Bliss. I think her new persona kicks ass. I think it's great. The only thing that I would change is, even though she's 4'10", when she stares at somebody, when she grabs them by the throat, I wish she'd just go ahead and choke slam them. I don't even care. I think it'd be great. But Buddy Murphy, he's a pretty good worker. I think he's really good. So I was excited, or not excited, but interested to see where things were going to go for him. They didn't go too well. He got beat by Ty Dillinger, who, you know what, I think that he'll always have a thing as a player coach in NXT. But if he was called up to the main roster and used in a 50-50 role where he one lost, I think that might be, I don't want to say his ceiling, because it's hard to tell what anybody's ceiling is in pro wrestling. I think he can get the 10 thing over on a much larger scale. I think that if he does that, that's cool. I think he would fit in well there with these split rosters. There's going to have to be some underneath guys that are going to get beat, because they released a lot of them. I think Ty Dillinger is more than capable in that role. And given his level of talent, he can go far beyond that. But I think initially, if he got called up, that's kind of what it would be for. But I don't put it past him to be able to break through that glass ceiling that would be set for him. Ty Dillinger won with an Ushi-Goroshi. That was cool. I like seeing that. Now, one of the highlights of the show, Finn Balor and Samoa Joe were interviewed by Corey Graves. Yeah, I've not been that high on Finn Balor just in general. I love the Demon get up for TakeOver. I think that's cool. Excellent showmanship. In the ring, I think that sometimes he leaves a lot to be desired. I think a lot of his offense is just kicks, enziguris, drop kicks, a lot of the same stuff. It's kind of redundant. And I don't like guys doing front drop kicks because, they slam themselves into the ground. But that's neither here nor there. Some of his mic work hasn't been the best either. That was not the case in this segment with Samoa Joe and Corey Graves. Holy crap. The WWE needs more of this. It felt like a UFC press conference. And if you all know me, I love the evolution of trash talk in MMA. We got a guy, Dominic Cruz, who, he's not over the top like Conor McGregor. Dominic Cruz is 135 pounds. He hasn't lost in, I don't know how many years, but he was out for a long time. And he was injured for the better part of 4 years. So he sat behind the desk, an analyst desk, and he saw the evolution of the trash talk in MMA. And he picked it up, and now I think he is a top 3 trash talker ever in MMA. I would put him up there with Conor McGregor and then maybe Chael Sonnen or John Jones. I don't know who else is, that third spot, but I think Dominic Cruz is right up there. Finn Balor felt like he was in a UFC promo. Like him and Samoa Joe were just going back and forth. It was natural. I don't know how much, if any of this was scripted. You had Corey Graves there to mediate it. He was excellent as he traditionally is on that microphone. I thought this was an awesome segment. It went on longer, maybe a little longer than I would have liked, but these two guys showed that you don't need to be out in front of a crowd to do this. And it makes more sense that way. Why, if you're going to bicker back and forth, do you want to do it in front of a crowd? Then it looks like you're trying to play or pander to the crowd, and maybe the crowd doesn't get behind it as much. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. But this was perfect. This was in an intimate setting. It accomplished what it needed to accomplish. The people who are in that arena are going to watch this show anyway. So I thought that was really cool. I thought Samoa Joe was unbelievable. I think he could step into the main roster, and if they don't beat him, could go toe-to-toe with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. If you don't pull a rabbit out of the hat with Goldberg, and I'll talk about that here in a minute after the NXT thing, I think Samoa Joe's the way to go. And there's nothing wrong with Brock Lesnar beating Samoa Joe. They're about the same age, and it gives you a big match. Two big, bad sons of bitches that don't get beaten and want to beat the hell out of each other, and they can both dish it and take it out. I think that would be great. Austin Aries versus the Drifter, Elias Sampson. It's a shame that Rob isn't here for this. He is a big fan of the Drifter. Taking a drink of tea, brought to you by ddpyoga.com/wrestling inc. They have given up on the Drifter. Nothing. best possible scenario for him. And it's a shame because I don't know that he needs to be repackaged. There's a million things they could do with the Drifter. And I'm not saying he's like a great worker, great character, or anything like that. I'm not saying he should be put in the Wyatt family, but if they threw him in there as a psycho Drifter that Bray Wyatt took under his wing, Eric Rowan and Braun Strowman are already in there, so I wouldn't really think twice about that. I thought that the Drifter character was kind of picking up once that he really started to go kind of psycho. Like he was a crazy Drifter. His in-ring style, hard to do that in NXT. The slow plotting thing. And I mean, that's the evolution. Me and Vince on Monday's show, we had a lot of disagreements about that, but that super, super, super slow style, if you don't add in some really good like chain wrestling or you got to have some submission abilities, which he doesn't look like he has. I've not really seen all he has to offer. But I don't know that that's going to work out for him. He lost to Austin Aries in pretty quick fashion here. I think Austin Aries needs to be a heel, and that's the direction it's going. It has to. If you're facing Nakamura, you're going to be a heel, and he's more natural as a heel anyway. He's much more comfortable in that role. So that's the right move. And as a babyface, I think he's a mid-card to kind of upper mid-card guy, Austin Aries. As a heel, I think he can be an upper mid-card to a main eventer in NXT. I don't know about on the main roster. And that's the thing. That's the thing we really have to wonder. What's going to happen to NXT with this roster split? Because we saw what happened on Monday. If you watched that episode of Raw and you thought, man, what's going to happen when they split these rosters and they have half the talent to deal with? That's terrifying, guys. You're going to have either hopefully some NXT guys that they need, or you're going to have a bunch of guys that have been marginalized over the past several years filling up this time. That's not a good thing. Titus O'Neil, more all the respect in the world to him. They marginalized him for the past several years. Darren Young, they marginalized him. R-Truth, Goldust, Tyler Breeze, Fandango. All these guys, at best, were 50-50 guys. At worst, were, losing every night. You can't have that. So a guy like Austin Aries, and if they don't 50-50 him to death, could step up and do a little something. He could be, have a big impact on one of these shows, no pun intended. We had Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano versus The Revival. Came out several weeks ago, and some of us wondered if this match would even air because The Revival have a tag team title match next week against American Alpha. And, the Athena versus Asuka match didn't air. Maybe they want to save Athena, or I can't remember what her name is, Adrienne Reese. Maybe they want to save that for down the line. And, you thought maybe this was kind of like that NXT taping main event that wasn't going to get shown because why would they have The Revival lose a week before NXT TakeOver? Well, we didn't have any answers for that. But Ciampa and Gargano won, and I could watch these guys wrestle all day. I think Ciampa's style fits WWE and NXT perfectly. When they brought this guy in, I already thought it was a good idea. But, man, the way that this guy has performed, he does, and, it's not that unlike a Nakamura or anything like that, but he fits the bill. His look is right for that. He looks a little bit crazy. He's just, he's a perfect fit for that spot. And Johnny Gargano is going to be Johnny Gargano, and he's over. The people love him. Eventually, you can split the two and feud them because Johnny is a natural hero, babyface, and Ciampa looks like he is guano crazy and can do that. And if you saw his work in Ring of Honor, he can pull that off as well. But yeah, they got the win over these guys. Where does it go? I mean, if you're NXT, if you're William Regal, psychologically from a storyline perspective, why wouldn't you put Ciampa and Gargano in the match now? Why do the Revival even deserve a title shot now? That's something that has to be asked and has to be answered. Now, NXT does a much better job of answering these types of questions than what happens on the main roster. But, I don't know. I mean, they do a thing where they make announcements on Facebook. So there is still an opportunity. Now, after the match, the Revival beat them down, tried to do the leg break thing to Tommaso Ciampa. American Alpha came out. It feels like they haven't been on TV at all since WrestleMania, but they've been on 2 or 3 times, I think. Not nearly enough for as over as they are. Man, I saw them live in Columbus. Really good. Really good. Incredibly kind guys, too. I spoke to them for a little bit. But they made the save. I think you got to shoehorn Ciampa and Gargano into this. But in my heart of hearts, I kind of want to see American Alpha versus the Revival. Then I want to see Ciampa versus Gargano against American Alpha because, man, as good as I think that the Revival match will be with American Alpha, I think Ciampa and Gargano will be even better. We had a really, really good contract signing with Asuka and Nia Jax at the end of the show. Nia Jax came out there in street clothes looking like she could still kill somebody. Nia Jax is heavily scripted all the time and looks really uncomfortable, but here she was fine. She said that even though Asuka beat Bayley, she broke Bayley, and Asuka told her if she's not scared, then she should be. They got into it. Nia Jax powerbombed Asuka. Asuka sold like $1 million. Really put Nia Jax over. Nia Jax to me looked like a little bit less of a threat when she lost to Bayley. But, they gave her her win back, and she crushed Bayley. Took her out of a takeover, which, you got to wonder, is that a good idea or not? I don't think so. But, Bayley's not going to be there. Well, she'll be there, but she won't wrestle. I'm ready for this match. I think Asuka can pull a really good match out of Nia Jax. You got to have 2 to tango, though, and I think Nia Jax can hold her own. The match last week, I think it was last week, Carmella, Alexa Bliss, Nia Jax, that kicked ass. Those 3 girls had a really good match. I really encourage you all to check that out. But next week, NXT TakeOver, we also saw that the former La Sombra will debut next week. This is just ahead of the Cruiserweight Classic, which surely he's going to be in. And he, by all means, is the favorite since he is under contract to WWE. And, he's a big star in Mexico, huge star in Mexico. And they're looking for that Latino talent. Kalisto ain't going to be that guy. He just ain't going to be that guy. If you've heard him on commentary, it's not the case. As I mentioned, they marginalize guys like Alberto Del Rio to the point to where I don't know if they can be the guy. So this guy's another chance, and he's a hell of a chance. Last night's Impact, I'll run through it real quick. Bram beat Lashley by DQ. This was used to further the Galloway-Lashley angle. Then Eli Drake came out, cashed in on Bram, won the King of the Mountain title. Cool. I like Eli Drake on the microphone. He kind of seems like he tries to be The Rock a little too much, but I've seen much worse. We had those Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy segments. Those were great. Just go watch them. Like, part of me thinks that Matt approached Jeff and was like, listen, Jeff, you are the shittiest actor in the world. So let's just run with that. Let's run with you being the shittiest actor in the world and make these really over-the-top, almost cheesy, not almost, cheesy angles and vignettes and segments, which were fantastically produced, mind you. Really great production in these. But I really like these. The Bromans beat Spud and Tyrus. Jesse Goddard's friend of the show. They're getting a title shot against Decay. Had to see that coming. I think Rockstar Spud and Tyrus do incredibly underrated work. I think Tyrus during TNA, I didn't expect him to ever be a main event talent or an upper mid-card talent in WWE, but he could have had a great run of being undefeated as a monster, then get defeated, then become the Funkasaurus and do whatever the hell they wanted him to do. He has shown that he could have at least held his own in that role. It's a shame that never got to happen. No really great matches on this show, by the way, but, it is what it is. EC3 made Mike Bennett clean toilets and stuff. That was cool. Mike Bennett beat James Storm. Maria caused the distraction. EC3 cut a promo telling him to get ready for Slammiversary. James Storm was able to hit the last call on him after that. Drew Galloway beat the Decay. Don't know about beating your tag champs right before your pay-per-view, week and a half before your pay-per-view. But it is what it is. Sienna and Allie versus Gail Kim and Jade. Gail Kim and Jade won. I think Gail Kim's still top 5 North American female workers at 39. Unbelievable. She's great. Jade's getting better. Sienna's fine. Don't really know much about Allie. I can't even remember who that is. Yeah, fine episode of Impact. Nothing outstanding. Those Jeff and Matt Hardy segments were pretty great. But yeah, we also had Lucha Underground tonight. Haven't got to watch all of it yet. Son of Havoc versus Daga. Now I tune in. A lot of times I miss Lucha Underground. I do not miss when Son of Havoc, Ivelisse, or Angelico are on because I love those 3. But Son of Havoc won a good match, good opener with the shooting star press. Cobra Moon tried to help up Daga after the match. Didn't seem too interested in it. Rey Mysterio was training in the back, going balls to the wall. We also had Johnny Mundo, PJ Black, and Jack Evans. Man, that's a team right there that if you wanted 3 in at least the late 2000s, if it was like, yeah, I want to pick 3 flippy guys, 3 really flippy ass guys, we'll take those 3. I'm cool with that. They won over Dragon Azteca, Rey Mysterio, and Prince Puma when Puma got mad and low blow Johnny Mundo. I'll talk about Prince Puma and his partner in crime, Will Ospreay, soon. Matanza defeated Cage. This continues, Matanza's big reign. This is probably Matanza's best match so far. Yes, that's Lucha Underground. Now, I want to talk about this Will Ospreay Ricochet stuff. But before I do that, you, my friends, should visit ddpyoga.com/wrestling inc. That's right, ddpyoga.com/wrestling inc. Go there. Try the yoga service used by AJ Styles, Sami Zayn, John Cena, Stevie Richards even, Scott Hall, Jake the Snake Roberts. You can go there, get a great deal on it. And if you do, you get 3 months of the DDP Yoga Now app for free. I love the DDP Yoga Now app. I don't really like to travel. I work from home. But when I do travel, I get to use the DDP Yoga Now app to get a workout in a hotel room, on the street if I want to. Stop traffic with it. Who gives a damn? With the DDP Yoga Now app, you can do that. And nobody's going to say anything to you because if they do, you can just hit them with a diamond cutter and be on your way. I'm sure you won't get arrested at all. ddpyoga.com/wrestling inc. And if you want to see how ddpyoga.com/wrestling inc. helped out Jake the Snake Roberts, check out the Resurrection of Jake the Snake, available everywhere. When I mean everywhere, I mean DDP might come to your town and do a screener. You never know. He might screen the film. He's done it in Australia. You can check it out, video on demand, Vudu, Amazon, Google Play, iTunes, PlayStation Network, all over the place. It's now available on Blu-ray and DVD. Go to the website, get a deal by using the code WINC. Also, it's now available on Netflix. So make sure you tweet the people at Netflix and say thank you for bringing us the Resurrection of Jake the Snake, and the Wrestling Inc. podcast told you all about it. So Ricochet and Will Ospreay. Guys, now, here's the thing. I see both sides of it. I see both sides. A lot of people, mainly people who didn't watch the match, are like, too much flippy shit. Okay, that happens. Cool. If it's not your cup of tea, that's fine. That's okay. Not every style, not every match is anybody's cup of tea. I don't like the Drifters' work. Rob does. Rob loves it. But, this, I thought, told a story. These were two of the most athletic guys in a Battle of the Super Juniors tournament, headlining a match. The crowd was into it. I thought they sold very, very good level. There were a couple times I wish they would have more. But here's the thing. The thing that I hear the most is that their style isn't realistic and that they need to sell more. if you want a style to be realistic, you can't want people to sell more. Because how many times do you watch, and you want realistic, you watch MMA, you watch amateur wrestling, you watch Catch Can Wrestling. What? Oh, yeah, Catch Can Wrestling. Shirt now available at prowrestlingtees.com/Sean Ross Sapp. Get you one. You watch Catch Can Wrestling, MMA, kickboxing, boxing, amateur wrestling. Do they sell? If somebody gets hit in the face, they better not sell. If anything, they try to laugh it off. Well, what would happen if somebody laughed off stuff in pro wrestling? By that same notion, John Cena doing his whole spiel after getting beat up, that's realistic. You can't ask for more selling and ask to be more realistic, because you would never put a highlight on your injuries or weaknesses in a real fight. You just wouldn't do that. I want to show. I've got a couple of guys, a couple of my MMA coaches. They're out training with Josh Barnett this weekend. They trained under Billy Robinson. If you haven't seen him, look him up. AWA star, had the very good fortune of training under him before he passed. One of the most legit wrestlers, just period. And I'd really like to show them the match to get their feelings on it. But I love the reactions from you all on the post. Like, a lot of you, the thing I like is on Twitter, it's 140 characters. On our comment board, it's a lot more. So we got people to explain why they didn't like it. We got to hear why people did like it. I really like that as opposed to the 140 characters. But saying that moves with flips are not effective, when I have seen scissor sweep takedowns, I have seen capoeira kicks, I've seen cartwheel kicks. James Krause in the UFC utilizes cartwheel kicks on a fairly regular basis. 720 tornado kicks that work. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff in MMA. You know what I've never seen? I said this on the Monday show. I've never seen a rear chin lock in MMA. You don't have your hooks in or anything. How many times have we seen a rear chin lock in a pro wrestling match? And how many times have we seen somebody spend a minute and a half to struggle to get out of that? That's not realistic. So if you were going to point at this style that maybe isn't your cup of tea and say that's not realistic, then why aren't you pointing at every other style and say, well, this isn't realistic about that? Because if I were to take it with a fine-tooth comb through any match in pro wrestling history, probably outside of maybe Pancrase or the UWFI, you're going to find some really, really, really unrealistic stuff. You never, outside of the big show, see people getting knocked out by punches. Happens all the time. Watch World Star Hip Hop, you guys. Happens all the time. Now, there are some moves. You know what? I saw a guy on World Star Hip Hop gut wrench powerbomb a dude into the street last week. Some of that stuff's practical. Rear chin locks, not so much. Not when you're facing the highest, supposedly the highest level of sports entertainers, wrestlers in the world. Just open your mind, guys. Not everything is going to be your style, and that's okay. It's entertainment. It's subjective. And yeah, that's the fun in it. You get to interpret things a little bit differently. They get to try new things. People said that Savage and Steamboat too, that they worked a pace too fast, that they did things that weren't realistic. Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask in the 80s. People said they were killing the business. I don't think they killed the business. I disagree with Vince saying that style of wrestling is why the ratings have went down. I don't agree. I think that the bad storylines that set up those are why ratings went down. Now, I think that the WWE absolutely has desensitized people to dives. I don't think there should be more than one, maybe two on a 3-hour show, and you have to make it make sense. Make the heel run away from the babyface, and that's why the babyface is diving outside. But even then, why would you risk doing that? You got to be inside to win the match. Now, if it's a numbers game, say the club is triple teaming Roman Reigns, he jumps over the top, takes them all out, that makes sense. Psychologically, that's probably my favorite thing, is the psychological aspect of pro wrestling. make it make sense, and it'll mean a little bit more. But I thought that Ospreay and Ricochet did that well. I thought a lot of the flips and spins and rolls were counters and reversals and ways to avoid each other. The face-off that you saw where they did the springboard and then faced off, it's a spot they both do. They both do springboard moves into elbows, kicks, cutters. And when you're upside down, guys of that talent level are going to see the other guy upside down, and they just, kind of did the same thing. I'm absolutely cool with that. If you haven't seen the match, check it out. It is up on the main page. Before I get into some questions, Jimmy Snuka not fit or not declared not competent to stand trial. Had to see this coming. I think this whole situation is a bummer, and it's terrible. I feel bad for his family. I feel bad for the family of Nancy Argentino, who for 33 years have basically lived a nightmare, probably. I'm not familiar with the family or their stance on the situation, but one would imagine they've been living a nightmare for 33 years, thinking that the person that may or may not have murdered their sister, mother, daughter, cousins, could be out there. And not only that, was being glorified, put in the WWE Hall of Fame on pay-per-view. It's a shame. They're going to do a new hearing in 6 months to reevaluate. That is a giant waste of time and money. This guy ain't getting any better. If he's really messed up, then he's not getting any better, not at this age. If he's not messed up, then that's 6 more months of coaching that his defense can give him. I'm not saying that that's just something I'm floating out there. Oh, yes. 777 says, talk about UFC 199. Hell yeah, I'll talk about UFC 199. Now, I'm going to be covering the show with a heavy heart on Saturday. I'll go ahead and put my own fight team over. The Kraken fight team, you can also check out our shirts, prowrestlingtees.com/Sean Ross Sapp. Check it out. We have one of the coolest logos in MMA or pro wrestling. We had a lot of people say it reminds them of the Bullet Club logo. Our logo was out 3 years before that, guys. UFC 199, this show. Now, I have 2 teammates that are fighting for titles at a local MMA event. I won't be able to go there and corner them, unfortunately, because of 199. And our 2 coaches are out training with Barnett. So good luck to them. Wish them luck on my Twitter, you guys. But UFC 199 might make it worth it. We lost out the BJ Penn fight because he is a moron who doesn't know the rules of MMA and admitted to using an IV, which is completely banned. Now, what you can get I'm trying to think of the word. Didn't take my Alpha Brain today, even though they're not a sponsor anymore. Still love my Alpha Brain, but didn't take it today. You can get a retroactive or a TUE of a retroactive exemption for using an IV. He didn't do that. He's not fighting on the show. He used an IV months ago, and I don't know why you're using them anyway in the middle of a camp. Kind of weird, but they're banned, so he's off the show. Still, an excellent pay-per-view. On the prelims, you have Jessica Panay versus Jessica Andrade. That's going to be a fun fight. Panay always comes to throw down. Her last fight was that one a year ago where Joanna Jędrzejczyk just as the term I like to use, mollywopped her around the cage. I'll think of some new ones for you guys. Cole Miller versus Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres. Little tip for you guys if you play EA UFC 2. Alex Caceres online is a cheat code. Use him. That's going to be a fun fight. Beneil Dariush versus James Vick. Another banger on the prelim show. Brian Ortega versus Clay Guida. Clay Guida, you never know what you're going to get out of him. You'll either get like an all-time great fight or an all-time stinker. He has win-loss since 2011, I think. So it's going to be interesting to see how he goes on this. Let's see. 777 says, after admitting he used an IV, he called the people who use IVs after weight cuts pussies. Yeah. So here's the thing about BJ Penn. I wasn't sure if he really wanted to come back anyway. Now, he's had every opportunity to get out of that fight, and he finally did. And if he wouldn't have disclosed that, they would have never known. But he's had 2 or 3 different opponents. It was Cole Miller. It was Dennis Seaver. It was Nick Lentz. So he had a lot of opportunity to just be like, okay, not it. But it seemed like he got goaded into coming back. Just on, I think, UFC Tonight, he was like, yeah, I'd like to beat up Nick Lentz. And I think it was Karen Bryant's like, does this mean a comeback? And BJ Penn was like, oh, I guess it does. Well, he didn't look so good in his last fight against Frankie Edgar. Granted, it's against Frankie Edgar. A lot of people aren't going to look good against Frankie Edgar, but he was definitely one of them. So the main card. This is an underrated main card. Dustin Poirier, Bobby Green. If this fight is boring, I'm not going to eat a hat like Rob. But let's see, what can I do? Can I maybe I don't know. I don't know what I could do. But this fight ain't going to be boring. Dustin Poirier, Bobby Green. Poirier at lightweight. He's one of those guys, like kind of before the trend, that jumped up from featherweight to lightweight, and he's went 3-0 since then. He beat Carlos Diego Ferreira, Joseph Duffy, Yancy Medeiros, and even before at featherweight, he was doing good. He lost to McGregor, but he had won 3 in a row before that, so he's won 6 of his last 7. 27 years old. Crazy to think that because he's been around so long. Bobby Green, he's won 8 of his last 9. I think 4 of his last 5 in the UFC. Lost to Edson Barboza, who stylistically was a bad matchup for him. He beat Josh Thompson, beat James Krause, beat Pat Healy and Jacob Volkman. This would be the biggest win of his career. So that's going to be a banger. Dan Henderson, Hector Lombard. How are you not interested in this fight? Like, much like the Guida situation, it's either going to be really exciting or really boring, because Hector Lombard's gas tank is good for about 90 seconds. And Dan Henderson is kind of a counterpuncher. But Hector Lombard, and see, the counterpuncher against a judo guy, don't know how that's going to work. But Hector Lombard has really heavy hands as well. This is going to be interesting, though, because I believe it's the last fight on Dan Henderson's contract. And, he says that he might not, he doesn't seem like, I think it was him that said he wasn't interested in going to Bellator. Oh, he's going to be interested if they offer him a lot of money. And they're going to offer him a lot of money because he fits their demographic, if you know what I mean. He's old. Max Holloway versus Ricardo Lamas. I don't see, man, this is going to be bad. If Max Holloway wins, it'll be 9 straight wins. So here's the situation he's in. If Conor McGregor comes back to 145, you got to do Aldo and Edgar against McGregor because it's an interim title. But then you got Max Holloway sitting on 9 straight wins since McGregor beat him 3 years ago. 9 wins in under 3 years, really in under 2.5 years. That's a lot. So if I were the UFC and Max Holloway puts away Ricardo Lamas, which I think he should be able to do, I would give him a tune-up fight. And I think tune-up fights are very underutilized in MMA. They use them in boxing a lot. If Chuck Liddell was fighting some donk on Fox Sports 1, we'd watch. Win or lose, whatever. We'd watch. Max Holloway's not a big name, but his fans are going to watch no matter who he faces. And if you put that as like a co-main, Max Holloway versus Jabroni, we've seen crazier things happen than Jabroni win, because there's no sure thing in MMA. Everybody loses at some point. But I think the art of the tune-up fight is really underutilized in MMA. I'm going with Holloway in this one. Lamas, 3 of his last 4. I know he wants back in that title picture bad, but starting to be a bunch of killers at 145. Dominic Cruz, Uriah Faber. This is going to be good. This is going to be good. Finally, the rubber match. It's going to be a technical battle, I would imagine. Maybe not the type of fight that casuals would want to see, but I don't, Faber's had like 5 or 6 title shots. I don't think he's going to win, but again, I'm not putting it past him. He's seen a lot of guys leave his camp. I wonder what that does to his psyche. The fact that, that Dominic Cruz is such a fantastic shit talker. Can't help either, because he's got this guy that he's had a feud with for a very long time. And now he's got this guy just talking a massive amount of trash to him, and it's really good. Like, he's telling him all you have is an overhand right and a guillotine, and saying all this stuff that he's saying, and none of it's necessarily untrue. So that has to get into your head. If you're Uriah Faber. Main event, Rockhold versus Bisping. Now, Rockhold handled Bisping easily in their last fight. And Bisping is a replacement of Chris Weidman, who ain't coming back anytime soon, if you ask me. He needs neck surgery, so he's not coming back by that November show. Unless he pulls some Kurt Angle stuff and he has to turn his body like this for the rest of his life. Rockhold's going to win this. Like I said earlier, there's never a sure thing in MMA. And Bisping did get headbutted in the first fight with Rockhold, and that really changed things. But Bisping wasn't winning that fight. I got Rockhold winning this. I think Rockhold is a very special fighter. Also, another EA UFC 2 cheat code, that guy. But yeah, UFC 199, we're doing full live coverage this Saturday on the website. Please join us for that. I'm going to get into some questions now. Somebody asked me on Twitter, did you see the Reddit squared circle thread about your Matt Hardy tweet? No, I didn't. I see that you put some pictures on there, so I'll check it out here in a second. I'm a big fan of Reddit squared circle. I don't post on there, but I have a few times, but I post under my name. But that's always cool because I like that place a lot. Somebody asked, does Rollins reclaim the title from Reigns eventually? So I don't know. It seems too early to take the title off of Reigns. They want to build to a Reigns-Lesnar match. They want to. Rollins, I think, is destined to face Triple H at some point. But I did think that. But Rollins would have to be a babyface, so maybe not. I think eventually he does. But if I'm WWE, I'm trying to get Ambrose strong, because Ambrose, Reigns, and Rollins in a triple threat is a legit main event. And it's one of the few legit main events that don't have your John Cena. It doesn't have your Triple H or The Undertaker or Brock Lesnar. It's a legit main event that you could put on at the end of a show if Rollins or Ambrose win, probably, because the crowd ain't going to like Reigns winning. I think that could main event. Somebody says, do you think they're missing the opportunity not pairing Ciampa and Gerard? They both got that intense psychopath thing going. Yes, they do. But I think they look a little too much alike to fans to pull that off. Ciampa and Gargano have a history. I mean, they've tagged together for a very long time. So I think that's a good one. Somebody, the person who told me about the Reddit thing, posted a screenshot from the Reddit squared circle thing of a guy who hated my Roman Reigns voice impersonation and said that I was trying to be edgy. No, if you like Roman Reigns or you don't like Roman Reigns, that's cool. I'm fine with that. I'm big on, you enjoy what you enjoy. My thing is, especially the Wrestling Inc. account and my account and events, we get a lot of people that will say really ridiculous. They'll give us ridiculous reasons of why they dislike Reigns. They'll be like, well, he sucks on the mic. Well, he's not been on the mic since WrestleMania, really. Well, he's got 5 moves. No, he doesn't. He's got a lot more than that. He can't work. Yeah, he can. At this point, I don't even know how that's a conversation. He has really good matches with a lot of people. His matches were better with Styles than the Jericho matches were, and I wouldn't have expected that. So it's not like, by all means, dislike Roman Reigns if you want. What I don't like are the people who kind of, they try to justify it, but they don't justify it with things that I think are really valid. Now, they might be to you, but to me, I don't think a lot of those things are really subjective. I think the entertainment aspect is, but I don't think, well, he can't work. Well, he's got 5 moves. Well, he sucks on the mic. They're hiding those weaknesses. And I think that's made Roman Reigns a much more watchable person. Now, what I didn't think was watchable was that Rollins-Reigns promo on Monday. for the past 2 months, it felt like WWE was just kind of like, okay, we'll let you boo him, we'll let you cheer him. Whatever you want to do, we're not going to push him as a heel. We're not going to push him as a baby face. He's doing what he's doing, and he's over like that. That's cool. The thing I don't like is JBL. He's polarizing. Oh, they love him and they hate him. Quit shoving that shit in our face. We get it. We hear the crowd. Also, the Rollins deal. Him running back and forth and back and forth. That was them begging you to boo boo Rollins and cheer Reigns. Didn't like that. I think everybody saw through it. It was very transparent. Insulted our intelligence a little bit. Yeah. 777 says, I disagree. His mic work is a valid reason to not like him. Well, I mean, but he's not been on the mic. And I'm okay with that. Goldberg wasn't on the mic a lot. Rey Mysterio should have never been on the mic. He was really terrible. Chris Benoit shouldn't have been on the mic a lot, and he had a pretty good run. But, there are a lot of guys like that. I think that Roman Reigns is best suited to play, a smaller Samoan Diesel. I mean, that fits him a lot more. Unless you see his FCW promo, that was really good. There's this promo out of him as a heel in FCW, really good stuff. But that works as a heel. I don't have a doubt that he can carry a promo as a heel because people don't like him. So almost anything that he does will seem like a pretty good heel promo anyway. As a babyface, he ain't your guy if you want a babyface promo. Not unless he's like, hey, I'm going to kick your ass, goodbye. Is the Revival too underrated? Yeah, they are. I don't want to say they've regressed because they haven't. But, I mean, they peaked with the titles. But I don't know, next Thursday or next Wednesday, I don't want to say that because they're great workers. But next Thursday is going to show you something. I hope they are a beneficiary of that brand split. They are one of the guys that I think could come up to the main roster and sink or swim. They'll either do really good or really bad. But I mean, look at the Vaudevillains. I hated them in NXT, and I thought that they have been fantastic in the WWE on the main roster, at least for their role. I think they've been pretty good. Somebody says, I suggest Samson get a valet named Delilah who dances about ringside with a hat collecting tips. If we could be so lucky. Does the club take the titles off the New Day? If I'm WWE, I have the club beat the Shining Stars and the Vaudevillains and all these other dork tag teams on the way to defeating the New Day. Whoever beats the New Day needs to be a hot team with a lot of momentum behind them. And that Usos program did them no favors. It associated them with a main event program, but whether it's by hook or DQs, whatever, if you only win like 3 of your first 10 or 11 matches in the WWE, people start to pick up on that. And they're going to pick up on it even more when SmackDown goes live and that becomes a more important show. I do think they're the ones that take the titles off of them. Somebody says, Matt Hardy is a genius, and anyone who follows TNA sees the big picture. Clearly overacting. That's the point, guys. I agree. Matt Hardy, despite that tweet earlier, jumps headfirst into every gimmick he does. And for that, I can appreciate him. The two things that have gotten TNA the most attention, with the positive negative balance. I won't say universally positive, universally negative. We're not going to talk about them paying people or selling. On their program, the two things that have seemed to get them the most attention this year are the Big Money Matt character and his broken Matt Hardy character. If you're trying to get people to watch for whatever reason, he's doing it. He's getting people to talk. Good for him. Getting people to talk before pay-per-view. I can think of a lot of worse things. Somebody said, Uno's been told the Wrestling Inc. podcast might be scripted. You know what? To be honest with you, this is the least scripted episode I've ever done. I don't have notes. I didn't take notes Monday, but that's because Raw sucked so bad. It was so terrible. But yeah, no script at all on this show. Not tonight. I do have, for the Monday shows, and these, I'll keep notes and things like that. And sometimes I'll actually have to list that I have a sponsor that I need to push, because sometimes you forget about that stuff when you start talking to Vince Russo, guys. He's a very charming person, if you couldn't tell. And you'll forget that you're supposed to do a segue. And I don't want DDP messaging me, bro, why didn't you push DDP Yoga? I'm paying you. Got to make sure. Oh, by the way, check out our interview with DDP last week. Some really good stuff on that. Do you think NXT will suffer greatly because of the draft? Yeah, I do. I hate to say that. They don't have any live events outside of the Brooklyn show. Any live events scheduled outside of Florida after the draft. I'm going to the Highland Heights, to try to cross the river from Cincinnati. Show that's on the Saturday before the draft. Really excited to see how that goes out. Yeah, if you all are there, let me know. I'm going to see the Sublime with Rome show the night before. So I'm pretty excited about that. What else do we have? 777 says they should help AJ destroy Cena at Money in the Bank, then go after New Day. There's a lot of things about that Money in the Bank or the club AJ thing. Why didn't they help him against Owens to get another title shot? Why didn't they swerve Roman Reigns to win the title? There are a lot of things that I just don't understand. 777 says Rockhold, Cruz, Holloway, Lombard, Poirier. Those are my picks. Me too. I agree. 777 says Hendo should go to heavyweight and go after Dada. So I don't know if you all saw the Dada. Obviously you've heard me talk about Dada if you've watched this show before. I guess either him or a member of his family said something like he should fight again. And Scott Coker, the Bellator president, went on an interview and said, right now, Bellator and Dada, it's like, let's just be friends. I thought that was just a perfect analogy. Somebody says, will Balor get called up after NXT Takeover at the end? One would think so, that he would be a big surprise in the draft. If I'm WWE, I stretch this draft out. I do it that night and the live SmackDown the next night. That's what I would do. But who knows? Guys, we are back on Monday following Raw with Vince Russo, maybe Raj. Raj has been working on some cool stuff lately. I have an interview with Josh Barnett, UFC star. Again, not to brag, but my MMA coaches and one of my tag team partners when I work pro wrestling matches. Going to train with Josh Barnett this weekend. He just got booked against Andrei Arlovsky for later this year. Check that out. Go buy yourself some Wrestling Inc. t-shirts at prowrestlingtees.com/Wrestling Inc. Of course, check out ddpyoga.com/Wrestling Inc. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. Rob, unfortunately, couldn't be here. He's battling like the world's worst staph infection in his eye, so he didn't get to show up here. It was pretty weird. He showed up at CM Punk's gym and just rolled around in CM Punk's sweat after a grappling session. And I guess he got a staph infection in the eye is the rumor that I'm hearing. And as you know, I only report things that, I've pretty solidly confirmed. By the way, I see the same person who said that, or the same person who sent me the Reddit thing says, I like when Sapp copy and paste news 2 weeks late and reports it as breaking. I ain't your guy for that, you guys. Sorry. Somebody says, would you like coverage of Sami Callihan's promotion's first show in WrestlePalooza going on here in Des Moines next week or so? I got front row seats to that. Yeah, send some pictures along too. Do you see, one more question before we do this. Do you see Cody joining the Bullet Club? Bucks made an offer. Yeah, I do. I can see that. I can see him cutting some pretty good promos too. I think he's the right type of guy for that. You all, thank you so much. Doing these by myself is not easy. I think I've done 3 or 4 by myself in the 100 and some episodes that I've done. Thank you all so much for bearing with me, for sending in questions, all that good stuff. I'll just stare at you until you leave.